Hi, in this video we're going to show you how to conduct two-dimensional calibration from the ISA 500, the ISD 4000 and the ISM 3D. We'll be using the ISD 4000 to demonstrate this procedure. However, the procedure is exactly the same in the ISA 500 and ISM 3D. To begin with, you want to install your sensor on the vehicle and ensure it is mounted securely to the vehicle and unable to move freely off the vehicle. Once the sensor has been mounted securely, wired up, powered up, you can then communicate with seaView, and the sensor will show up in the devices the seaView software. At which point you can double-click on the sensor and it will launch the sensor application. In this case, we have the ISD 4000 application, so we're getting depth, temperature, heading, pitch, and roll. Your other sensor will display whatever sensor data is relevant to its function. To conduct the calibration, we want to go into the settings window and then navigate down to the AHRS settings and then onto the Calibrate Mag button. Clicking Calibrate Mag will bring up the calibration window. You'll find it's a three-dimensional view you have. You can click on the view and move around with your mouse. You can also scroll in and out to zoom forward and back from the view. Depending on the magnetic properties of your ROV or other subsea asset that you're using the sensor with, the points which show up in this calibration will either be close to the middle or they could be quite far away. So being able to zoom out may be required. Now we want to conduct a two-dimensional calibration. This means calibrating the magnetometer by only rotating the vehicle. So you don't need to move it significantly through its pitch and roll. So to conduct a 2D magnetic calibration, click the 2D button at the lower part of the screen. This will then be highlighted in green. At this point, we also recommend you click the Reset Transform button. This will wipe any prior magnetic calibration data within the sensor, allowing you to conduct fully new calibration. You can also see all the calibration data on the right-hand side there. And when we click the Reset Transform button, you can see all this data gets wiped, so it's all zeros and ones. At this point, with the sensor on the vehicle communicating in the calibration window, we can start the two-dimensional calibration. So we click the Start button. At this point, you now want to move your vehicle. You want to rotate it basically 360 degrees, rotate it round, just demonstrate this, either rotating around on the spot if you can, or perform a kind of figure of 8 motion movement of the vehicle, whatever is easiest to perform in the particular application. As you do this and as you move the vehicle, you'll see points being built up on screen. You can navigate around to view the points from a different perspective. Once you've done a full 360 and you've generated a reasonable number of points on the screen, click Apply. Once you've done this, you'll find a new set of points have appeared, a number of bright green points. This is the corrected data, the calibrated data. Once the green points appear, the calibration has been successful and has been applied to the sensor. At this point, you can close down the calibration window, close down the settings window, and the sensor will now have a calibrated heading.